According to the book of Exodus, the story of the Ark dates back to ancient Egypt in the 13th century BCE.
Do you think that the Ark of the Covenant was just an ancient myth or movie legend? Then you are quite wrong, because buried inside newly declassified CIA files is a chilling detail. And the agency may have found it. Not in a temple, not in a museum, but somewhere far more secretive and far more real. Why was the CIA hunting a biblical artifact? What did they uncover that stayed hidden for decades? For centuries, the Ark has been lost in whispers, wrapped in holy mystery, feared for its power, and chased across continents. But now, the story has taken a sharp turn. What was that turn? Let's find out. The Ark of the Covenant. Some call it the Ark of the Testimony. Others, the Ark of God. But whatever name you choose, it was never just a wooden chest. It was the holiest object the Israelites ever possessed. Picture this: a sacred box crafted from acacia wood, completely overlaid with gold and topped with two golden cherubim facing one another. Not just decorative, but divine. That lid, it wasn't just a cover. It was called the mercy seat, where God himself was said to speak directly to Moses. So, what was inside this mysterious container? The original stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, yes, those commandments, were given to Moses on Mount Sinai. But that's not all. A pot of manna, the mysterious bread from heaven that fed the Israelites in the desert, and Aaron's rod, the one that miraculously budded, were also stored within. Now, here's where it starts to feel otherworldly. This golden chest wasn't just symbolic. It moved, and when it did, the Israelites didn't take a single step forward without it. They carried it nearly half a mile ahead of the camp, led by the Levites, and everywhere it went, strange things followed. Rivers stopped flowing. Walls of cities collapsed. Enemies panicked. Was this a box, or was it a weapon? A transmitter? Something else entirely? Biblical accounts describe God's presence as appearing between the two cherubim. Think about that. An unseen force, localized between two golden wings, speaking to a man on earth. What kind of object does that? And still, the mystery deepens. After the Exodus from Egypt, the Ark became the centerpiece of Israel's spiritual and military campaigns. At the Jordan River, the moment the priests carrying the Ark stepped into the water, the river dried up. At Jericho, it was paraded around the walls for 7 days, and those walls? They came crashing down. Coincidence? Or something more? But the Ark didn't just bring power, it brought judgment. When curious onlookers in the town of Beth Shemesh dared to peek inside, dozens dropped dead on the spot. Some accounts say 70, others 50,070. Either way, the message was clear. This was not a relic to trifle with. Later, in a desperate attempt to turn the tide of war, Israel's leaders brought the Ark into battle against the Philistines. It didn't go well. They were defeated, the Ark was captured, and thousands died. Even the priest Eli dropped dead upon hearing the news. His daughter-in-law went into labor and named her son Ichabod, meaning, "The glory has departed." But here's where the story takes a chilling turn. After the Ark was stolen, misfortune and disease ravaged every Philistine city it entered. Their god, Dagon, was found shattered on the floor of his temple before the Ark. Tumors broke out. Rodents ran wild. Could it have been a plague? Radiation? A divine curse? Terrified, the Philistines sent it back, on a cart, along with golden images of the tumors and mice that had tormented them. They were desperate to be rid of it. Eventually, King David brought the Ark to Jerusalem, but not without incident. A man named Uzzah touched it and died instantly. And David? He was so shaken that he left it in someone else's house for 3 months before daring to bring it home. But something is haunting about relics lost to time, especially when they're said to carry the very voice of God. According to the biblical narrative, the Ark of the Covenant wasn't just a sacred object, it was a sacred object. When King Solomon stripped Abiathar of his priesthood for backing Adonijah's failed coup, he spared his life. Why? Because Abiathar had once carried the Ark. That's the weight this object held, not just physically, but spiritually, politically, and psychologically. It wasn't just wood and gold, it was the covenant. After Solomon's divine dream, where God offered him wisdom, he didn't rush to war or gather his court. He worshipped before the ark. During the construction of his grand temple in Jerusalem, he built a room unlike any other, the Kodesh HaKodeshim, or Holy of Holies. That's where the ark would rest, behind a veil, in perfect darkness. When the priests placed it inside and stepped back out, something happened. A cloud filled the temple. The texts say it was the glory of the Lord. Think about that for a moment. An object so revered that the mere act of housing it brought a physical, visible manifestation of divine presence. What kind of energy did this thing radiate? When Solomon later married Pharaoh's daughter, he ensured she resided outside of Zion. Why? Because Zion was sacred ground. It held the ark. Even royal privilege had its limits in the shadows. Fast forward to King Josiah, a reformer. He brought the ark back to the temple. Back? Yes. That means it was removed at some point, possibly by kings who strayed too far from tradition or feared it might be captured. Before Josiah, there was Hezekiah. This king also saw the ark. He wasn't just known for his spiritual leadership, he prepared Jerusalem for the siege, reinforcing its walls and carving a secret tunnel to divert spring waters into the city. That tunnel still exists. You can walk through it. But here's where things turn from history to mystery. In an ancient non-biblical text called the Treatise of the Vessels, it is stated that Hezekiah hid the ark, along with other treasures, from Solomon's temple. Not just anywhere, but in specific locations, recorded on a bronze tablet. Mysterious springs, sealed cisterns, even Mount Carmel and Babylon. What prompted such a secretive act? And could any of these places still hold the ark today? Some scholars go further. They suggest Hezekiah, or a writer inspired by him, may have encoded clues in the book of Ecclesiastes. That cryptic final chapter, with its silver cords and broken pitchers, may be more than just a poetic metaphor. Could it be a veiled reference to sacred relics that have been lost or buried? Even archaeology starts to echo these possibilities. At Kiriath Jearim, long believed to have given up the ark to Jerusalem, researchers uncovered an elevated platform, possibly a shrine, still active in the 8th and 7th centuries BC. Does that mean the ark stayed there longer than we thought? Was it only moved to Jerusalem during Josiah's reforms? If so, what was being worshipped in its name before then? When Babylon destroyed Jerusalem in 587 BC, the biblical texts fell silent on the ark's fate. The Greek version of 1 Esdras claims the Babylonians carried off the vessels of the ark, but doesn't say they took the ark itself. Why the omission? Did the ark vanish before the siege? In rabbinic tradition, the debate rages. Some rabbis believed it was taken to Babylon. Others insisted it was hidden before that ever happened. A late 2nd century text, the Tosefta, even claims King Josiah stashed it away, along with the manna jar, Aaron's budding rod, and other relics. Where would he hide something so precious? Some say under the temple itself. According to the Talmud, a suspicious stone was once discovered in a wood storage chamber. A priest noticed it had been tampered with. Was that the entrance to a secret chamber below the Holy of Holies? Others propose that Solomon, with foresight, constructed tunnels beneath the Temple Mount. And when Josiah saw the storm coming, he used them. To this day, nobody knows for sure because that area remains virtually unexcavated, its secrets locked beneath centuries of stone and political tension. Then there is the Book of 2 Maccabees, which takes us entirely outside of Jerusalem. It claims the prophet Jeremiah hid the ark on Mount Nebo in modern-day Jordan, buried in a cave, sealed and forgotten, waiting for a future when it might be revealed again? But would we even recognize it if we found it? Modern archaeologists debate its origin, form, and even existence. Some, like K.L. Sparks, think the Ark story was written as a standalone tale in the 8th century B.C., an ancient legend folded into later scripture. Others, like Thomas Romer, suggest that it once carried not tablets, but sacred stones, or even statues, echoes of Yahweh, or perhaps Yahweh and Asherah, the goddess once whispered about in pre-exilic Israel. That idea, though, meets pushback. Scholar Scott Noagel dismisses the Bedouin chest comparisons, pointing out the vast differences. The ark had gold, cherubim, poles, and strict ritual laws. The camel did not transport it. It was carried on shoulders with reverence. Noagel offers another theory: the Egyptian solar bark. Those golden boats used in temple processions had everything the ark had: structure, symbolism, and ceremony. Could the Israelites have adapted this sacred design into their worship? After all, the Egyptians placed written covenants beneath the feet of their gods, just as the tablets were placed beneath the mercy seat. And here's something else to consider. Before worship was centralized in Jerusalem, regional shrines across ancient Israel had their sacred objects, often referred to as the Ark or Ark of the Covenant. Was the Ark of the Covenant just one among many? Was its rise to prominence part of a larger campaign to unify religion under one roof? Some scholars say yes. Others, like Ronan Eichler, say no. And the debate continues. Now, let's examine the point at which it was revealed why the CIA was interested in the Ark. At first, the Ark conspiracy might sound far-fetched. However, once you delve into the now unsealed files, the story begins to shift from myth to mystery. These weren't just religious documents. They were classified records linking the Ark to strange electromagnetic signatures and maybe even radiation. Why would a sacred chest, last mentioned in ancient scripture, show up in Cold War-era intelligence reports? During the 1980s and 1990s, the CIA launched a covert effort under the name Operation Sunstreak. Using satellite imaging and remote sensing, agents were instructed to monitor magnetic and radiation anomalies in regions associated with the Ark's legendary path. That's not theology. That's surveillance. The Ark, according to the Old Testament, vanished around 586 BC, but its pull never faded. Stories of it killing anyone who touched its tales of power, light, and destruction, hence, they weren't forgotten. And for some at the CIA, those tales raised one critical possibility. What if the Ark wasn't just symbolic? What if it held real, ancient technology? One memo describes field experiments that show electromagnetic irregularities, consistent with what ancient accounts claim. But no one explains what that means. Another document suggests quiet cooperation between Israel and Ethiopia. So, who knew what, and how long had they known it? And then came the silence. Whatever they uncovered was buried under classification for over 20 years. Why hide it? What did they see on those satellite feeds? Did they find something that confirmed the legend, or something that could change it? Because here's the thing. When a government classifies something for decades, it's not because they found nothing. So, what exactly did they find? And where was it? The documents don't say, but they drop just enough breadcrumbs to keep the trail warm. Some say the Ark never left Ethiopia. Tucked away in Axum, a quiet city with ancient roots, there's a small, heavily guarded chapel called the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. According to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, the Ark of the Covenant has been hidden there for centuries, watched over by a single chosen monk who is never allowed to leave the grounds. No one else is permitted inside. No photos, no access, just stories and silence. However, the CIA files, although redacted, point directly to this region. Scattered throughout the documents are blurred coordinates and technical jargon, but a few things are clear. Intelligence agents noted anomalous readings in the vicinity of Axum. Even more curious, they confirmed signs of subterranean structures, patterns underground that lined up with ancient concealment methods. What exactly were they detecting? And if the Ark had been there all along, then why now it is being discovered? Reports indicate that the CIA utilized thermal imaging and satellite data to pinpoint something concealed, something that didn't align with the natural landscape. And this wasn't some passive surveillance operation. The files describe what appears to be an active extraction effort. Equipment, movement, personnel. Why such urgency? The timing raises flags. In the 1990s, Ethiopia was facing violent unrest and civil conflict. Could U.S. intelligence have feared that a powerful relic, whether religious or something more, might fall into the wrong hands? Or someone may have stumbled across it by accident? One theory suggests that American operatives became aware that the object, whatever it was, had been unearthed rather than stolen and smuggled and then discovered. If that's true, it would explain the classified response, the drone footage, and what appears to be joint involvement between U.S. agencies and unnamed international partners. And that begs another question. What kind of object would make multiple governments act in complete secrecy? According to the documents, the artifact, whatever it was, wasn't rushed back to the United States. Instead, it was quietly transported to a neutral site for what the files referred to as temporary containment and analysis. No country was named. No coordinates were given. It's just vague phrasing and an unsettling lack of detail. And then, nothing. After 1993, the trail goes cold. Mentions of the operation disappear completely from the CIA's internal records, at least in the declassified ones. Why? Was the mission shut down? Was something found that couldn't be explained? What happened at that neutral site? And more importantly, why was the discovery buried in silence? Once the documents surfaced, experts started weighing in. Historians, theologians, and even former intelligence analysts, each with a different angle. Many historians had long dismissed the Ark as little more than a biblical legend. It's a powerful one, yes, but it's still a story without proof. But once government involvement entered the picture, with files, coordinates, and secret ops, the tone began to shift. Dr. Elijah Grant, a well-known scholar of ancient Near Eastern history, said what many were thinking: there's no confirmed sighting of the Ark after the Babylonian conquest. That's been the standard line for decades. But if the CIA was actively searching, that forces a re-examination of the so-called missing years. Some theologians chimed in as well, reminding the public that even if the artifact didn't do anything, its presence could still shape politics, religion, and power dynamics. A relic like that, with layers of meaning, could stir global tensions even without scientific proof. So, what was the U.S. government looking for? A lost treasure of faith? A forgotten piece of ancient technology? Or something else entirely? Something that couldn't be explained, only hidden? It's no longer just about myth. Even within intelligence circles, not everyone was convinced. Some experts took a more grounded and skeptical view. Former CIA analyst Rachel Moore, who once served in East Africa during the early 90s, cautioned against jumping to conclusions. The CIA's involvement doesn't prove the Ark was found. It just means they were interested. That's a big difference. But that's exactly what kept people on edge. Because if it wasn't the Ark, then what was it? Skeptics wasted no time picking apart the documents. They were heavily redacted, filled with vague references and cryptic terminology. No object was named outright. No photos were released. It's just a trail of phrases like containment protocols and cultural artifact. That's it. Some argued the public may have misread the files altogether. Maybe the CIA had stumbled onto something ancient, yes, but not the Ark. Not the golden chest from the Hebrew Bible. Not the relic said to level cities and part rivers. Maybe it was something else entirely. A tomb. A coded tablet. A relic from a forgotten civilization. But then again, what kind of artifact demands international containment? What kind of discovery gets buried under 30 years of silence? Others went further, suggesting the release of the documents was a sleight of hand, a classic case of disinformation. The CIA has used the tactic before. Leak something just mysterious enough to spark a frenzy, while the real operation unfolds in total darkness. Could that be the case here? This wouldn't be the first time a myth was used as a smokescreen, said one retired intel officer under condition of anonymity. You give people a puzzle, but the real answer is buried somewhere else. Still, the timing raised eyebrows. Why release the documents now? Why let even a whiff of the Ark's name leak into the public domain? Maybe it was accidental. It may be intentional. Or maybe, just maybe, the truth was so massive, so destabilizing, that even half the story had to be slowly introduced. For decades, the Ark of the Covenant has lived in the space between belief and mystery, a powerful symbol for some, an ancient riddle for others. But now, with government files, expert debate, and whispers of a hidden excavation, the conversation is shifting. So here we are, staring at redacted lines, pixelated satellite images, and cryptic phrases tucked in a declassified vault. Something was found, something ancient, something important enough to trigger a global operation and then vanish from the record. In the end, was it the Ark? Or was that name just a stand-in for something else, something even stranger? Think about it. Why the silence? Why the secrecy? And why now when the world may never get a clear answer? But every redacted page, every classified whisper, keeps pulling us deeper into the question. And this kind of question doesn't just challenge history, it rattles belief itself. Now, what are your thoughts about the Ark of Covenant conspiracy? Tell me about it in the comments section.